Hi, everyone. Before we get into today's episode, we have some sad news to share. Some of you may have seen on HAlan's Instagram our Out on the Lanai mascot, HAlan and Michael's fur baby, Fraser, who I love, but who scared the shit out of me all the time on this podcast, has joined our four golden girls behind the pearly gates, way up in the sky. And so we just kind of wanted to take a moment before the episode to talk about what Frasier meant to us and to this podcast. I will say, I mean, obviously we've talked about this on the podcast before that Frasier kind of came along around the same time as this podcast, and I always saw Frasier as someone who was always trying to keep me on my toes, again by scaring the shit out of me, and but was a cat that was like a dog. Like you could pet Frasier like a dog. And I always loved that about him, that he would have never try to scratch me or
Betty
bite
White
me.
would have loved Frasier.
Betty White would have loved Frasier.
They all would have. But
Yeah.
Betty White in particular would have loved Frasier. It's so funny. We weren't going to do this. We were going to take this week off because obviously for reasons, clear reasons. And I then last night yesterday when it all happened, I was watching the Golden Girls, as we do, in tough times. And I was looking at the comments and reading the DMs from people, especially you guys, everyone who listens to this podcast and who has been listening for so long, reaching out and talking about their memories about Frasier on the podcast. And I just thought it got me thinking about, 2014 was a big year for me in a lot of ways. And not just even the podcast starting, but it was, I had finished chemo and then I was moving sort of into my own space again and being on my own again after all of that trauma. And that's when I adopted Frasier. And it was sort of this like symbiotic, like, let's build ourselves up again. Frasier from kitten to who he became, and me into the human that I needed to become post everything that was happening to me. And so seeing those messages from Golden Girls fans and then thinking about that year and how everything sort of started in that year for me. So much of my life changed in that year for me. It's when I converted to Judaism. It's when so many things happened to me in that year that the trauma of everything that happened this weekend goes back to that. And it's this weird thing where you do something for so long and it's your life, like this podcast. And, we do things and we get paid for them. We don't get paid for this necessarily. I mean, of course, sign up for our Patreon. But you do stuff and it's a job and it's a thing you love doing, but you don't get that much money for it and you just love doing it. But then there becomes something that just sort of becomes part of your life. It becomes part of your reality, your identity, your family. It's who you are. And doing this podcast has always kind of been that for me. And Frasier was always a part of that because he was like my little sidekick, my little buddy who was sort of in this mix with me. And I remember the day I adopted him, I walked in with my family friend Colleen, who you guys have heard. She's who I lived with during chemo. And we walked into the shelter and Frasier locked eyes on me. But I, like, knowing everyone who knows me knows I have this, like, I have to, like, even though this doesn't come off in the podcast, I'm actually a very practical, rational, like, detail-oriented person in that I have to do my due diligence with things. And it takes me a year and a half to buy a bag that I want because I have to look at every other bag. And so I did that at the shelter, even though Frasier was just, like, eyeing me the entire time. And then of course I came back to Frasier and I of course took him home with me, and it was just because he locked eyes on me. And then as we were doing the podcast and he was terrorizing Kerri and everything was happening and I was becoming myself and I was learning my voice through this podcast, and I was recognizing that we were creating a community of people who supported each other during difficult times. And there are so many moments on this podcast where we had pivotal things happening. I mean, you getting married, having a child, like, me getting with Michael, and even just me getting with Michael was so much of me opening up to the idea that I could, especially even with Frasier, I could give love and receive love. And these are all big milestone things that happened over the course of us doing this fucking podcast. And that is huge for me because it hits me that like we are a family. We are a thing that when horrible things happen like this weekend, you come to something like this for comfort, and you watch a show like The Golden Girls for comfort. And even though it seems frivolous, because I get it, it's like he's just a cat. It's still like
No, he's
there's
family.
there's a weight to it because they get into the fabric of our lives. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that has been standing out to me so much, that, you know, just like the things that I'm sad about are not big memories of Frasier or the little things around it, but it's like the simple everyday routine things that have become the fabric of my life. And this podcast also has become the fabric of my life and my identity. And so if I did anything this week, even though I've canceled everything, if I did anything this week, it was that I wanted to be here to sort of honor Frasier's memory, but also do the thing that I do when I don't have a direction forward, and it's watch The Golden Girls.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just, I'm really touched by everyone. You use words because I have none.
Yeah, no, I read some of the messages. They were very, very sweet. And I think, like you said, it goes back to, you know, the Golden Girls community and how we are all here for each other in those tough times, and how we all turn to the Golden Girls in those tough times. It's like, it sounds so cliche to say, but it's like we are all the Golden Girls.
We are.
You know?
We really are. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
it's you know, it's serious. I took my glasses off.
Yeah.
It like, yeah. And I'm so grateful for everyone and the messages. And, you know, I've experienced my own trauma, but this happened so suddenly and it was so unexpected. And so one of the things that I was thinking back to in all of this was that we recently had Frasier on the podcast, but it was on the Rusty Anchor version of the pod. We brought both of our pets out. And I don't know, he's just such a part of my identity. So he was such a part of the podcast that if you're listening to this, I would encourage you to this week watch it. We're going to release all the episodes this month, actually, for Pride, because we have lots of fun things planned for Pride on YouTube. But I thought it would be nice to just share a little moment from Rusty Anchor Happy Hour where Frasier made an appearance just a couple of weeks, literally like 2 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, it was just a few weeks ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were talking about how in the early days of recording the podcast at your old place, how he would always jump out of nowhere and scare the shit out of me.
Yep.
And then just Michael hands him to you and he's on. And then I went and I grabbed my dog, and
He did not want to be on.
Nope, he did not want to be on. He looked so pissed off. And yeah, but it was really
typical
sweet and typical cat behavior.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna play that little moment, and then, you know, which again you can watch on YouTube, watch on Patreon.
And then we're going to do the only thing that I know to do. It was so funny yesterday when I was sort of like, I'm crying all the time now, but I stopped crying and I stopped thinking about things and I stopped getting obsessed. You know how my brain works, that when I was watching The Golden Girls, and that's all I want to do. So that's why I wanted to do this episode and do this today. But I couldn't do it without saying the things I needed to say.
Well, thank you for saying them. And I'm sure the audience is, you know, touched by your vulnerability and your, you know, your willingness to sort of come on the podcast today and share your feelings in such a difficult time.
Thank you. Well, let's get to it. Let's play that clip and then let's get to the episode. I'm ready for it.
All right, let's do it.
Cats leap, and I wouldn't see him. We'd be sitting on the couch, and then all of a sudden he would just leap onto the back of the couch right by my shoulder. And it was very fast. He was like the Flash. Do you know the Flash?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
You know the Flash.
Yeah.
So Frasier was like the Flash.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it would startle me. He would just move very quickly and swiftly. And all of a sudden he would just be on me or right next to me. Frasier is a jump scare in a horror movie, is honestly the best way I can describe it.
Well, he would jump in the back of the couch while we were recording, and just because he wanted to be with us, he wanted to be a part of us, you know?
What's wrong with strolling up?
He doesn't need to stroll when he can jump. And just like right now, he can just float right into my arms
like this and not stay. Oh, here he is. Here he is.
Hey, Frasier, I feel like I should go get my dog. I wonder what my dog would do.
You think he would care about Frasier?
No.
Frasier's like, I want to leave. This is bullshit.
Should I go get my dog? Should this be a pet one? And then
Sure.
I'll still have to show my postcards because I set them up in the main episode. But let me go get my dog. Talk to the audience for a second.
Okay.
I'm going to go get my dog.
Okay. I can also cut this part out, too.
Sure, but this is the rest of your happy hours. This is unhinged. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Okay, go. Yeah. That's Frasier just eating right out of Michael's hand. Oh, my God. Like it? You don't care if there's a treat involved. Ow! What? See, you're happy. You're just relaxing. This is just us being chill right now while Kerri gets her puppy. Frasier's wondering why he's a part of this, but he also remembers. We figured out. I'm talking to Michael here. We figured out that he's like the exact same age of the podcast. Because we met in August. He was born in August of 2014, and we started it in September of 2014. So he is the exact same age of the podcast. Isn't that cute? Here she comes. Here she comes. I hear the steps. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
All right.
Look, Frasier.
This one needs a haircut. This is what we call his trash dog phase.
Oh, hi.
This is Sue. Short.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, a boy named Sue, like the Johnny Cash song. No. This is short for super awesome dude. That is literally his full name. Look, Bubba's look. He's a kitty cat.
Frasier
We think he's a Morkie. I don't know. He's also a rescue.
Cute. See, now dogs
Yeah.
would be more chill in this situation because Frasier's definitely dying to leave right now. There's the amount of hair that's coming on me from stress is very real right now. But
Picture at Los Angeles 2024.
Welcome to Out on the Lanai, the only Golden Girls podcast you're ever going to need to listen to. I am HAlanScott / Sadie Pines.
I'm Kerri Doherty, and today we're doing another Golden Rewind where we go back and rewatch our favorite episodes of the Golden Girls and offer new insights since we first started breaking down these episodes way back in 2014. And it's June, which means it's the month of the lesbian. Happy Pride, everyone. It is time to put on a fedora and call your baby brother because we just rewatched season 4, episode 9, Scared Straight, the Clayton episode.
Starting things off with Clayton, but all month long we're doing Pride stuff, and we have a special guest coming on soon too. And Sadie will be coming out, and there are so many things that are happening this month. And like I said at the beginning, we'll be releasing episodes on YouTube just this month for a treat on the day that episodes drop, just because we have so many great things happening that y'all, please listen to the podcast however you want to listen to the podcast. But this month would be a good month to watch the
I know.
podcast
I feel like if you're offering up Sadie,
Yeah.
we're offering up Sadie, then they have to watch the video. They have to. They have to.
You're not getting Sadie today because Sadie does not cry on camera. Sadie does not.
No.
I barely do.
There would just be lashes and streaks everywhere.
It would be a mess.
Oh my gosh, it would be a mess.
So
yes,
much.
we
so many
have
fun things.
So many fun things. And if you're in the GGVIP club, all month long, we are doing on the Rusty Anchor Happy Hour, the Golden Girls, non-Golden Girls gayest moments.
I am so excited for this.
Do you want to explain what that means?
Yes, because this was my idea. I feel like I'm shepherding this.
I love it.
It's so unhinged. So okay, homosexuals, here, come close to the camera or microphone or earphone or whatever you're listening to. Earphone? What year? Is this 1922? Come close because you know that we love women of a certain age, and you know that we can make even the thing that isn't gay so gay, like First Wives Club. for example, Jawbreaker. I mean, Mean Girls. Like, these are not gay films, but they're gay. And so the Golden Girls, in the pantheon of all of the things that these women did in their careers, there are so many things that are not gay, but are so gay. And so we are honoring all of the not gay, but so gay moments of these women's lives. And today we're starting things off with, for this week's, with B. Arthur. And there is one that it will be a main episode someday. It will be the clip we're choosing. Well, I'm not going to say what it is, but the clip we're choosing will be a main episode because it is so wild and batshit crazy.
So you sent it to me and you were like, "Oh, I can't believe they put this on TV," and I was like, "Oh, like okay, sure," like thinking you're just like exact whatever, being dramatic. And then I watched it and I was like, "I can't believe they put this on TV."
It wouldn't even fly on SNL today. It wouldn't even fly. So if you want to know what we're talking about, you have to go over to our Patreon and subscribe and listen to the Rusty Anchor Happy Hour because it's gonna be a queenie month over there.
Yeah,
very queenie,
very queenie. Patreon.com/Golden Girls Podcast to get all of those, and they are B. Arthur's a real fun one to start with. I'll tell you that much. Oh, can we talk about Clayton?
We need to. You know, I met him at the actor at the first Golden Con. Lovely man.
Monty Markham.
Yeah,
great name. Love the alliteration.
I was obviously dressed as Sadie, and I do believe he was a bit frightened of me, but he was very nice. And if you're going to be frightened of someone but be that nice, that's how you should be in the world. He was very nice. What a lovely man. But there is something that we can. I was going to say this for the main episode, but I kind of want to talk about it up top. There's a moment in this episode where Blanche, who, let's say we know she lies about her age, but like she's like in her 50s. Like she's like, 50 something in the series. And she says her baby brother is 45. Now I hate the memes that say this was 55 in 1985 and this is what 50, and they show pictures of J-Lo and Rue McClanahan. I hate that. We've talked about that on the podcast before. But I look, and no shade to Monty. I don't know how old he was in 19 or whenever this episode came out, but I don't think he's 45.
You think he's younger than that or older than that? You think he's older?
I think he's older.
When you mouth it, only I can see it. Nobody can hear you.
I think he's older.
Why don't we look it up?
Okay, I'll look it up. You talk.
All right, you do some. Okay, well, what I will say while you're looking that up, because now I'm like, wait, how old is he? I mean, he's still alive today. I believe he's in his 80s. I love Blanche and Clayton's dynamic. I'm really glad that I love this episode. I'm glad they brought him back for another episode where he tells Blanche that he's going to marry Doug. But I wish they had done an episode in between where Clayton and Blanche fight over the same man who happens to date both men and women. Like, I feel like that would be really fun. Like when Blanche and Sophia are both fighting over Fidel Santiago, just like hurling insults at each other like Sophia and Angela do, but like it would be spoken in such beautiful prose. I see you doing that. This is amazing.
Yep. He was 53 years old, which not far off 45. So that's not crazy.
Okay, but you're right. He was older than 45 to 53. That's
it is
what,
almost
7-8 years. Yeah.
I mean, that's
it's like practically 20.
And we're saying this as people who, yes, we are only 28 years old, but let's just
we look
say
really good for our age.
Let's say there's a world in which a time warp in which we might be in the 40 range. I knew that person was not 45.
I love that we're like, let's talk about Clayton. And your first thing is like, he's so much older than he says he is.
Which, I'm sorry, the gayest thing ever, but it is very homosexual to be a 53-year-old man and then say you're 45 years old. So maybe Blanche was just in on the joke or in on the lie because maybe they both lie about their age.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If she, you know what I mean? If it's like, he can't be 53 if she's telling people she's 52 and he can't be her baby brother.
She's not telling people she's 52. She's telling people she's what, 40?
Yeah. So I think that's probably what it is that I bet they're both probably just lying about their age.
And she probably
How did she not know he was gay?
I know. Because of all of the women, like, okay, let's just break this down, right? Of the characters, not the actresses. I would say and I don't know, maybe this is just me, homosexuals weigh in, queer, I mean, everyone weigh in, but I mean, particularly queer people. I would say Blanche would be the one who would be most in tune with the queer experience in terms of like Miami and being around gay men probably, and like, you know, being South Beach. I mean, we all saw Birdcage. So like, I would assume that Blanche would have more of a learned experience with queer people around her. Certainly not Rose. I mean, she only saw the queer things happening between the cows. And, you know, certainly not Dorothy, because Dorothy would have a lot of friends, but all of her queer friends would be like bookish queer people, which I'm a bookish queer person, and we're not necessarily fun people. So like, I don't think she would have that many, you know, other than Jean.
Jean, yeah.
Yeah, but then, and of course, you should probably dated a few because Dorothy's the type. But I would think that Sophia would probably have a gay friend or two, and she wouldn't have told anybody ever. She would have kept that secret because, you know, she doesn't snitch.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, she wouldn't have cared.
No, she wouldn't have cared.
She wouldn't have told people, but she wouldn't have cared. She wouldn't have gossiped about it. She wouldn't have, she would have been like, yeah, who cares?
Yeah. She would have been like, I don't care. Is your marinara sauce good? That's all that matters.
Exactly. That's all she cares about. Did you put a curse on her and her family? That's all she cares about.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, but Clayton's really gay.
I feel like that's the perfect thing to end on, to go to a commercial break and to maybe come back and talk about this episode.
Great. Let's do it.
And we are back talking about the Golden Girls Scared Straight. I do for a second just want to break down a little bit of the career of Monty Markham, who this man's been on Broadway, in TV, in films going back to 1967. He is still working at the age of 88 and going to Golden Con.
I mean, there's a picture of if you Google image search Monty Markham, there's a picture of him in like a Baywatch outfit. Like
go on.
Yeah, I mean, he's not like shirtless or anything, but he's like Baywatch. Let me see if I can text you this. Yeah, is.
Or hold it up on your phone so people can see that are watching the video as well.
I'm looking on the computer.
Okay. You text it to me. I'll hold it up. Okay, it just came through.
Yeah. I mean, he's like, it's like legs are shown.
Ooh. I wonder let me see if everybody can see this.
Of the Murder, She Wrote. He probably.
Ooh, there he is, everybody. I held it up. Very, very handsome.
Monty's Markham.
Yeah, there you go. It also kind of sounds like a superhero name, but because of the alliteration. Fun fact about Monty. In 1992, he and his wife started a production company. And since then, they have produced documentary features and series for A&E, for the History Channel. Like, I love to see couples that work together. Yeah, they produce all these documentaries. Yeah.
And I just said this, but he was also in, you know, the frequent. Oh, he was the reason why he's in he has that Baywatch photo is because he was in the TV movie Baywatch Panic at Malibu Pier. Who knew Baywatch?
How old is Baywatch?
Baywatch is like 80s. It started in the 80s. But I think.
So he was sort of like an older.
Yeah. Well, and they came out in 1989, and he did Golden Girls. His first episode of Golden Girls in 1988. So he would have been 54, which we know.
Well, hey, now I love that they're putting a 54-year-old shirtless man on Baywatch.
Well, he wasn't shirtless in the picture. I don't know if he was shirtless in the show, so I don't. I don't give people.
Oh, okay. He may have worked behind a desk.
But yes, totally.
Interesting.
Well, he has shorts in the photo. Oh no, he was also. Wait, no, I'm being an idiot. He was on. Everyone who loved Baywatch, which if there's a crossover of Golden Girls and Baywatch fans, I want to know who you are. But he was on he was actually a regular on Baywatch, the series from 1989 to 1992. He did 42 episodes.
Wow.
Yeah, and Monty. He also, because I mentioned this, he did Murder, She Wrote, 4 episodes of Murder, She Wrote, spanning from season 2 to season 9.
They kept bringing him back because he's so great. He is so fantastic in this episode.
Yeah.
His accent is so spot on to Blanche's that it actually it does feel like they're related, which I feel like the accent that she does is not particularly easy. I mean, it comes easier to some of us than it does others, maybe. But I thought that he did such a great job with this episode. Like I said, I'm so glad that they brought him back. I would have loved to have seen that episode in between when they fight over the same man. Yeah. But
well, he was very busy on Baywatch, so he couldn't come back a lot.
He was very, very busy. I noticed that Blanche gets dressed up when Clayton comes, and also when Big Daddy comes.
Maybe it's a thing. I mean, it's a very Southern, I guess. I'm Midwestern, so I don't know, but I would assume like it's like, oh, well, you want to present yourself at your best, you know, when you have guests and the family and stuff. And I feel like Blanche always did that, you know?
Well, when Virginia comes, I feel like she doesn't sort of like point out the fact that she's gotten dressed up. She's certainly like cleaning everything. And then when her grandson David is coming, I feel like she's just like, fuck it. Why am I going to try to impress, you know,
some nitwit teenager?
And also that actor. So, what's his name? David Jacoby, I think. Anyway, I realized I rewatched that episode. He was supposed to be 14 years old in that episode. I'm like, that man is 22 years old at least.
Wow.
And he was playing 14.
I mean, you are famously married to someone who is, you know, very much an adult playing a child.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah,
I mean,
I guess he was still playing high school.
The calls
when he was
coming
in his
from
30s.
inside the house, Kerri.
I'm throwing stones inside my giant glass house.
I love that your husband could actually play my like nephew.
Yeah.
You know, like
Isn't
we
that
were
funny?
standing next to each other, I would be the gay uncle.
Yeah. Well, he'd have to dye his grays and
Yeah.
put some makeup under the dad bags under his eyes. But
Oh, I got all that for him.
yes, you do. I do want to play a little moment with Blanche and Clayton because they kind of have the same rapport that Blanche has with Big Daddy, where they sort of talk very rhythmically in the Southern beautiful prose to each other. So let's play that moment.
Baby brother!
Sister! Oh my, look at you, all gussied up, prettier than a spring blooming peach tree on a dewy April morning.
Oh, well, you ought to talk all fresh, scrubbed, and rosy-cheeked like a country parson at a September hoedown.
Why do I get the feeling they had a maid named Honeybee when they grew up?
Whenever I hear like people talking like weird to each other in an intimate way, it's to me the same as like PDA. You know what I mean? It's the same as like get a room, you know? Like I don't like it feels very like I'm listening to something that's going to lead to something inappropriate.
I mean, you know, they're definitely like there's no one else in the room. They're definitely just locking eyes and having this moment, and it's as if everybody else has dissolved and they no longer exist. That's certainly the case when they talk to each other.
I do low-key love people like that who are just so it's their world and we're just in it. And there's a level of like, you know, you gotta have balls to do that, and I kind of love it. Drag queens are like that. Maybe I'm like that.
It is you're right, because he walks in and there's no quick like, hi, it's so good to see. Okay, and here are my friends. Like they have such a long exchange that you're right is sort of intimate, which is funny.
Yeah.
Also, Dorothy may make honeybee jokes or whatever, but did you see when Clayton and Blanche are fawning over each other, she kind of looks at Rose like, like I'm so impressed. Like, oh.
Well, I wonder if that was maybe that was a note from the director to sort of imply that like Clayton is hot and the ladies might have an interest in Clayton, thus leading to the Rose thing. Like,
interesting.
I feel like that might have been, and maybe there was more to the script than, you know, maybe there was some of that in the script and we just don't know it. But like, I could see that being a note.
That's interesting because I was wondering sort of, because she's heard Blanche talk like that. She's heard Big Daddy talk like that. But then she hears Clayton talk like that and she's like, oh, like suddenly impressed. But yeah, you're right. I don't know. Maybe there was a thing of like, oh, check out this handsome man.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of thing. Oh, that's interesting. I like that. I also looked to see if a maid named Honeybee was like a reference from a movie or something. I couldn't find anything. So
No,
I'm like,
know.
oh, maybe that just sounds like a Southern thing.
Yeah, I mean, honeybee does sound like a Southern nickname.
Yeah.
Come here, my little honeybee.
My little honeybee. So Clayton is divorced. It has been 2 years since he got divorced. Blanche wants him to get back out there dating. Do you feel like Blanche is kind of pushing him too hard in this episode? Or do you think because she knows her brother or thinks she knows her brother so well, she's sort of doing that like, this is what's best for you. And if I just give you that little baby birdie push out of the nest, you'll fly.
I don't begrudge Blanche's behavior in this episode at all, with the exception of her treatment of Rose. I because Clayton and just speaking of the queer experience, men, and gay men, that was a big thing that many gay men sort of came to the realization of who they were after years of being married to a woman and having children, and that was a common thing for years and years before being gay became more and more acceptable socially, and so societally, I should say. And so I don't think it's out of place for Blanche to, if she is genuinely ignorant to the idea of him ever being queer, which she clearly is, then obviously it's been 2 years. It's not like his wife died or something. It was a divorce. It's like, get back out there. Like, there wasn't like a tragic thing that happened to him, although a divorce is tragic. It's like, it's still, I would see her as a sister being like, go, like, what are you waiting for? You know what I mean? Because if his spouse had died, I feel like it would have been a little bit of a different conversation. But
Well, I don't know actually, because think about Jean. Blanche barely knew Jean, and Pat had passed away, I think, only a year ago, and Blanche was pushing Jean real hard.
yeah, that's bad. I wouldn't suggest that. You don't push a widow ever. I don't feel, but like a divorce, I feel like is a very different situation. But I don't know. I mean, I'm also a child of divorce, so maybe I have a lackadaisical view of divorce here.
I don't know. But yeah, I'm kind of with you in that I didn't think it was. Would the kids say, I don't think she was being out of pocket? Did I say that right?
Wow, you are 28.
Yeah.
Someone's been on TikTok.
No.
Using it before it goes away.
No, I just watch Vanderpump Rules. But I do want to play a moment where Blanche, because Dorothy has such a great joke, but where Blanche sort of does express her wishes for Clayton.
Oh, well, I've done a little matchmaking.
Blanche, not again.
Yes, again. Now, you are 45 years old. You've been single almost 2 years. Well, both Dorothy and I know how much fun the single life is. Many's the night Dorothy has sat here alone in this room watching me go out on dates.
Sometimes I watch her go from the kitchen window. It's easier to bay at the moon.
I want to also, Chris Gallo, I'm going to address you, buddy, right now in this episode. Have you made a shirt of Dorothy? You know the wolves shirt that's very famous? It's like 3 wolves and they're all like baying at them. Okay.
Yeah.
Chris, if you haven't yet made it, I want to see, not to put you on the spot, but I kind of want to see Dorothy, unless you've already baying at the moon.
You have.
I feel like that would be a really fun shirt. So just going to put it out there.
Putting it out there, manifesting it. It's pride. Just saying.
But this is why Blanche has set Clayton up on a blind date with Lois Lemans from the museum.
What a name.
What a name.
Name.
It's like, oh, sorry. I'm so sorry I can't make it to your birthday party next week. But, I am 8 months pregnant and I haven't yet taken my Lois Lemans class. So I'm going to have to take that.
It also sounds like a sandwich.
A Lois Lemans?
Yeah,
what would be in the Lois Lemans?
Probably something weird. But I just think of lo mein. But which, in St. Louis, there's like a famous sandwich you can get at Chinese restaurants. So maybe it would be like that kind of sandwich where it mixes like Chinese food with like white bread. It's very strange. It's a strange sandwich.
Lo mein Lemans?
Yeah, lo mein Lemans. See? Yes, it works.
I like it. It works. Yeah. Don't change a thing.
Yeah. But the date does not go well.
It does not go well. But before we get to the date, I love a scene in The Golden Girls that is just a funny standalone moment. It doesn't move the story forward in any way. And Clayton leaves to go on this date, and the scene could have just ended there. They could have had a little button and moved on. But then they took the time to write this incredible moment between Blanche and Dorothy.
Oh, yes. I forgot about this.
Where they talk about Blanche gives Dorothy the surefire way to have a successful blind date. And I know so much of it is visual, but I know if you're all like driving and just listening, you know exactly what you're seeing.
You know this moment.
And yes, so we're going to jump in right after Dorothy says, "Did you say putty?" I can't do the Dorothy. Can you do it?
Wait, say it again.
Can you say, "Did you say putty?"
Oh, putty. Did you say putty?
Yeah, that's better than
putty.
Thank you.
I can't. My throat hurts. Been crying a lot.
Sorry.
Okay. Should we play the clip?
Yeah, let's play the clip.
Okay. First, I start to yawn a little. Then I put my hands up over my head like
Oh,
this.
Blanche, I know that. When you end up with your arm around me.
Yeah, but that's just the first part. Did you know that if you blow right on the tip of a man's earlobe, it can drive him absolutely crazy? I'll show you. Go. I'm gonna be dead in 24 hours. Couldn't you stay in the closet for one more day?
Okay, so that you know what I was thinking while watching this.
love it.
I never thought about this, but there is like so I looked at the time clock there. That from when she started blowing to when Sophia has her line, it is like 12 seconds. Now that doesn't seem like a long time, but if you think about it, if they were actually in real life and they were just doing this, after 5 seconds, it would become flirting.
Yeah.
Like it would become sort of
She's
like
doing it for a long
just
time.
a little too long, and and then of course that would mean, you know, Sophia's response would be perfect, but like it's sort of like when the thing goes on, when someone hugs a little too much,
A little
and
too
you're like,
long, and you're like, oh, when I back up out of this, are they going to try to kiss me?
yeah, that's what
You're
it would be.
so right.
Yeah.
She would go, and then you do this, and then, and she'd
Yeah.
go, oh yeah, I get it.
And
But
also
no,
too, I mean, I hope you're watching this, because she does this thing where, I mean, and love Rue McClanahan for this. She's kind of like swirling her blow in a little bit when she's just sort of like,
yeah. That's her
It's-
technique.
it is, I mean, it's erotic.
It is erotic. Did you also notice that Rue puts a pillow down on the cushion and sits on top of it? I
She
think
could-
so that she would be closer to B. Arthur's height. I think that was a blocking thing where they
Which,
were like,
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I don't know what position. I guess Blanche would be laying down if she was doing this to men, because she would have to do that with men too, because men are most likely, you know, Dorothy's height. So like,
Mhm.
yeah. So I wonder how many pillows Blanche has sat on to blow in a man's ear.
I mean, or with Dorothy, it would have been way more sexual, but she could have been like up on her knees, but then that would have been like
Oh,
way too, she needs to be sitting with her feet on the floor. Sophia says always keep your feet on the floor.
She could have straddled Dorothy and done the whole like Drew Barrymore thing. You know what I mean? Because Drew Barrymore,
Yes.
because Drew Barrymore is too close on her show, so she could like straddle Dorothy and then be blowing in her ear and stuff.
Oh
and
my gosh.
yeah.
I once dated a man who was 6'4", and when I always, my favorite place to kiss him would always be, I would be standing on like 3 or 4 steps and he would be on the pavement, and that's
Yeah.
how we dealt with the height issue. It always hurt my neck. It was really
I'm
hard to,
sure.
like, when we were standing, to like, ugh,
That's how tall I am in drag.
tall people, am I right?
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I also love, and this goes back to like the blowing taking as long as it does, but Dorothy's face, because you're like, what if it's going to go on for this long? What can what can B. Arthur be doing as an actor to make it feel believable, but that she wouldn't be saying anything? And her face is so super serious and concentrated, like someone just went like, shh, hey,
Yeah.
can you hear that? She's like trying to listen. That was like the look on her face, and I was like,
Yes.
great choice, B. Arthur.
I mean, she's a professional.
She is a profesh. All right, so now we
Wait.
get to the park.
Before we get
should
to
we
the
take a
park,
break?
we should take a break, and
Okay.
we will come back and find out if Clayton is a homosexual or a hobo or a hobo.
And we are back. Okay, now we're at the park where Clayton's date has already gone horribly wrong, and he's alone.
Mhm.
The marble structure that Rose and Clayton are sitting on, is it a bench? Is it a
No,
fountain?
I think
Is
it's
it
a
a
fountain.
planter?
I think it's a fountain.
But it
Maybe.
looks like a fountain, but they didn't put water in it. They just filled it with like fake hydrangeas.
Oh, I don't know. That's interesting. I never thought about that. I just always assumed it was a fountain they were sitting on the edge of, you know?
But there's no water. I have a feeling they were like didn't have
The budget for
fountain
water.
budget money. They didn't have the budget for running water because
Maybe Monty came very expensive. He was on Baywatch after all.
maybe in the original Perry Mason,
Yeah.
So maybe he was,
Mhm.
yeah. So Lama's class was not Clayton's type.
No.
And Rose is like, I can figure out what your type is by giving him an Rose thinks she can figure out what Clayton's type is by Clayton giving her his honest reaction when like a couple of extras walk by while trying to walk totally normal, which is really hard when you're an extra and you know that all the eyes are on you.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that just Clayton telling Rose his type? Like, there's nothing for her to guess, right?
Because no, there isn't. I mean, there really isn't. But I mean, it's like it's sort of, to me, I read it as sort of like a stupid way of choosing like Tinder dates for your friends and swiping left and right on people. It's just sort of like, it's just fun. It's just fun to sit there with a friend and be like, you think they're hot? You know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Or like what me and my friends used to do, and like it would be like it would be late night in like a diner or whatever, and we'd have been out doing stuff or whatever, and people would be coming in, and they'd all be sort of like half drunk or whatever, and we'd all be like, "You think they just came from doing the naughty?"
Oh, that's so funny.
And so we'd always be like, "Oh, they were doing the naughty. Her hair is messed up."
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so it's a fun game you do amongst friends, but it doesn't really mean anything.
I love that. When I was a teenager, my friends and I, we used to do a thing where like you'd see someone who was like out of their mind and you'd be like, hey, there's your boyfriend. That's what we used to say. There's your boyfriend.
We used to do that too, but it would be with people who were like cartoonishly not ever would be our boyfriends. You know what I mean? It would be like, I mean, it just would be, I mean, yes, you'd be making fun of people because of the way they look. That's essentially the root of the game, which is very mean and don't do it. But we had fun doing it.
The 80s was, I mean, I don't know when were we young?
Oh,
the 2010s were a wild time.
Crazy
when
times.
We were teenagers.
Wild. I mean,
just a mere. I mean,
Obama
I graduated high school when How I Met Your Mother finale aired. That was when I graduated high school.
That's when
Clayton, that's not fair. You're a man. That's a man. You're both men.
He's a homosexual. And so we learned that. And I do love that they had Rose be the character to sort of usher in this, because she is, and again, we've talked about this on the podcast before, but Rose is the character in which difficult conversations often funnel through, and I like that. I like that they intentionally chose to do that on a number of episodes. Of course, AIDS episode, or even the chronic fatigue syndrome episode. Even though that's Dorothy's episode, the Rose going with Dorothy, that was intentional, and I think it's a good character to sort of have that conversation with.
It's also, I think, because she's so sweet and naive, it's a fun reaction from her, where if Clayton had expressed it to Dorothy, she would have understood right away. You know what I mean? You get the most humor out of it being Rose, which is fun.
True.
And speaking of Rose and humor, oh my gosh, she got a long laugh because Clayton wants to tell Blanche, but he always chickens out. And she goes, tell her tonight while you've still got your dander up. And there was the longest laugh from the audience. And I was like, I get it, but I'm going to be honest here. Again, this is no fault of Betty White's. I didn't think it was that funny of a joke.
Maybe they were just hot from other stuff. You know what I mean? Because I feel like this would have been a hot episode to be the audience on. And so like maybe they were just like hyped up,
It gets a laugh.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, okay, all right. So back at home, Blanche and Dorothy are engrossed what I think is a police chase happening on the TV.
And they feel uncomfortable after that long blow.
Yeah. Yeah,
they're both like, you stay over there.
Yeah, I'm going to sit next to you, but we're going to watch a loud episode of Cops, okay? So Clayton comes home with Rose in tow. He tells Blanche that he just didn't hit it off with Lama's class buy one, get one free. And I love the moment with, I ran into Rose in the park and we had a long talk and we slept together tonight. The look on Rose's face, that because she's like smiling. I don't think her mouth could have gotten any wider. She was so shocked. And I thought that was such a funny performance from Betty White.
Betty White is a standout in this episode. Betty and Rue. I mean, they're all great. There are so many good moments in this episode.
Yeah, so many good. So that's the act break moment.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it was really big of Rose to not tell Blanche that they didn't sleep together, because she could have just been like, we didn't sleep together. But then if she had, Blanche would have said, well, why not? Why did he lie? Clayton, why did you lie? And then he probably would have felt compelled to tell her. And, you know, she wants him to do it on his own terms. And I think that's very admirable.
Well, and what's so interesting about that to me, and what that always meant for me as a queer person, and now as an adult looking back in this episode, and assuming that there probably were no queer people on staff writing on this episode at this point in the series, because I don't believe Mark Cherry was there quite yet, and we know Stan Zimmerman wasn't there either. So, like, I don't believe there was a queer writer. I could be wrong on that one. But what's so fascinating about this is Rose becomes the example that I think a lot of women, the role that a lot of women have historically played with queer men in history, in that the protector of secrets, the ones that, you know, when you need that outlet to be able to tell someone that you don't have a sexual attraction to, that you can just be friends with, that thing, you know what I mean? And at least every gay man of my generation and before, you have that girlfriend that is just the keeper of secrets. And in this situation, she's put into a very awkward situation. But I also think she realizes that, and she's like, it's not my secret to tell. It's not my thing to talk about. I'm going to protect my friend here, even though Rose just met this man. And that just shows you how great of a person Rose is.
Yeah, she is such a good person. And we also know Rose hates it when people are angry with her, like when her coworker doesn't like her and she can't stand it.
Yeah.
So that must have been very difficult for her, being like, no, you are not rightfully angry with me. But she just, is very, very admirable. But she does end up telling Dorothy what's going on, which is where we get the fabulous line, Clayton is a hobo.
Oh, that needs to be on a t-shirt too.
I'm sure Clayton is a hobo is on a t-shirt. And I'm surprised that Sophia didn't know, just based on Clayton is a hobo. Because it's like, why didn't you sleep with him? Because he's a hobo. But I mean, those are really great context clues. But Clayton is a hobo isn't as funny as what Sophia says next, which is an even more iconic line.
Yes.
Okay, have it your way, but nobody can keep a secret from Sophia Petrillo. Whatever that guy's hiding, I could smoke it out of him in 3 or 4 quick questions.
Hello, ladies.
Perfect timing.
Ma.
So, Clayton, what do you think of this Miami weather so far?
Oh, it's lovely.
I see. Have you ever been to Europe?
No, but it's always been a dream of mine.
Interesting. How many fingers am I holding up?
2?
Fine. You can go back in the living room now. The man's as gay as a picnic basket.
Okay, first off, 2 things. I want to know what drink Clayton is drinking. Is it a Sprite or a Mountain Dew?
Oh, I just thought it was juice, but I wasn't fully paying attention.
Well, it came out of a can, and I don't think juice came out of cans in the 80s. It does now, but like I don't think
Tomato
feel like
juice
it was
would have, right?
I don't know. I feel like it would have came out of a bottle in the 80s, like a glass bottle, you know? I don't know. Someone, because we obviously, you know, we graduated in 2010, so we don't know. So if anyone who is, you know, fabulous and a few years older
If
maybe
anybody was
born.
like alive in the late 80s, even,
Yeah,
because
let
we
us know.
weren't.
This is stupid. This joke is dying quickly.
I don't think it is.
But the other thing that I think is so funny is that Sophia has reached an age where she can literally tell people, "You can leave now."
Well, that's
Like,
just it. I would be so confused if I was Clayton. Like, I just came into the kitchen for a drink, and
let's be
Sophia's
real.
just
He's
asking
used
us.
to being confused.
Yeah. Sophia just asked like a couple of random questions and then is like, okay, you can go now. I'd be like,
Yeah.
what just happened?
Yeah,
Okay.
I know. I
Yeah.
know.
I
But it is
also,
so funny. It is so funny.
it is, oh, it is so funny. Man's as gay as a picnic basket is one of my favorite lines. And I love to imagine Clayton in their sort of, remember that like impossibly giant standing shower from the episode where they replaced the toilet? And
Yeah.
he's just singing Send in the Clowns with like Dick Van Dyke, like pacing back and forth with his giant clown shoes on.
Yeah.
Oh, oh my goodness.
So funny. Oh.
So Clayton feels really bad for what he's put Rose in the middle of, and Rose keeps imploring him to tell Blanche. And before he does, we get a great insult from Blanche, who is livid with
Yeah.
Rose. She's like, "Get away from my baby brother, you cradle snatching, empty-headed, two-faced dummy."
Which, I mean,
Ooh.
I don't think it's warranted how angry Blanche is. I think it's warranted that she can be angry, yes, but I don't think she should be as vicious as she is because, you know, she of all people should understand the lustful urges of a one night by a fountain.
Urges. I had these urges.
Urges.
Her of all people. I mean, when I was in high school, I started dating my best friend's brother, and she was upset with me because I didn't like ask her first. But she didn't sling insults at me like that. She was just upset, and then we talked about it, and then it was okay.
How long did that relationship last?
4 years. Lost my virginity in the basement.
Oh, are you still friends with the friend?
She and I have a very complicated relationship, and we haven't spoken in a couple of years, which was my choice. But I'm still very close with her dad. Okay. And my high school boyfriend, I, talk to every once in a while on like Instagram, like him and his wife and stuff. So.
Oh, cute. Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
Anyway.
Maybe she's onto something here. Maybe she should be a little angry.
I don't know. Maybe. But of course, with Clayton and Blanche, he finally comes clean. He tells her he's gay. And at first she doesn't believe him. She's like, "You're my brother. I know you." And I think for Blanche, what makes it so difficult for her is that she feels like she doesn't actually know who he is anymore because she didn't know this about him.
Yeah. Which I think is a very common thing for people, especially back then, to feel. And I mean, yeah, we talked about this a bunch, but like one thing we haven't talked about is why is Blanche the only one who goes to this restaurant?
You mean like why doesn't she bring the women with her?
Yeah, like it's a full set that they've used now, I think on 2, maybe 3 episodes. So like why don't the other women go to this restaurant? Why is this Blanche's secret rusty anchor?
Oh, you mean like in the context of the show? Why have they never been here before?
Yeah, I mean they have a whole set that they've used multiple times, but only one woman uses, and I can't think of another set that they've used that only one of the women, other than like special episodes. Like I'm talking about a set that's used in multiple episodes. I
have to wonder if it's because they were trying to pass it off as a gay bar, and so they obviously didn't want it to be at the Rusty Anchor because Blanche would know that very well. But I'm not sure. Honestly, maybe they did use it, but they redressed it in a way where like we didn't actually recognize that it was that same restaurant. I don't know.
But the 2 I'm reflecting on 2 episodes that I remember this, but maybe even 3, because I think when she goes on the date with the blind guy, it's also at this bar restaurant situation. But in at least 2 of the episodes where this restaurant is used, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's this episode and there's the other one, the Valentine's Day episode. I think it was Valentine's Day, where Blanche goes on date because this is where, she would go with before he passed, and like all the things. And then
Mm-hmm.
she's talking to the man who's thinking of proposing to his
Right.
fiance or girlfriend, and we learn it's a man. And so there was like 2 gay storylines within this bar space as well. And I think that was the same space as well. So
Oh,
I think,
interesting.
yeah, I think maybe this is a gay spot, and Blanche just never knew.
Maybe.
Yeah, and
What is that?
the blind guy probably didn't know either.
Well, yeah, I mean,
How would you know?
and what does that guy say? He was like, "I'd rather date you, lady." Is that his line or something?
Yeah.
I've just done the impossible. I've converted one.
I love
Oh.
campy movies that have where the campy people are the straight people. I'm thinking of like In and Out, for example, like Joan Cusack's character. Is everybody gay? This is a heterosexual code blue or whatever. Like,
she's so funny in In and Out.
Oscar nominated for it. But yeah, I love moments like that where the dude's like, I'd rather date you, lady.
Yeah, it was so, I'd rather date you, lady. It was like so, like they were like, just make it really macho if you can. And so he's like, okay.
But she comes around and they all decide to go to, they first want to go to not Emilio's, but Julio's or something, because the guy, they wore tight pants. I forget the name of the restaurants. And I love that because Clayton's all like, oh, really? Which is exactly what I would do.
Yeah, but I love that he feels comfortable enough to do that in front of Blanche.
I know.
It's just so nice.
But my favorite line in this episode, my favorite line of everything. I know Sophia's storyline we didn't really talk about, but you know, she thought she was dying, and then at the end she realizes
Fine, I'll scratch the Ben Gay off the grocery list.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that one line from that story.
But her storyline I thought was cute and stuff, but it wasn't, I don't know, it was like not the best storyline for me. But my favorite line from this episode is when Blanche goes into the kitchen to make up with Rose, and she's going to apologize, but we all know Blanche can't apologize. And she says, it's just the 2 little words. It's just the hardest to say. And then Rose goes, not tonight. It
was so funny.
It is such a perfect Rose Nyland moment on The Golden Girls. It is a standout moment. I love it so much.
It's great.
It's right up there with Find Your Underwear out of the pile of whatever.
Oh,
like it's up,
so
like,
great.
It's so good. It's so good.
I loved it. I love this episode. I think this was a great episode to start with for Pride Month. And I think we're going to probably close out Pride Month with the second Clayton episode, which will be really fun.
Ooh, exciting.
I love it. I love it. I would love to maybe do some golden takeaways.
Let's do it. We'll be right back with the golden takeaway. Oh my God. And we are back with our golden takeaway, which is a nugget of truth or inspiration that you can apply to your life or the lives of our listeners. Kerri, what's your golden takeaway from this episode? Mine
is about the Sophia storyline. I realized at the end of the episode, you know, when the doorbell rings, it's Mildred. And she's like, so I tried to, she's like, she wanted to tell Sophia that there was room for her at bowling. She's like, I knocked on the door, nobody answered. So she's like, so I figured you were napping and I yelled into your window. Like, what about picking up a phone, Mildred? And like, if Sophia was sleeping, how would she hear you? If she did hear you, you'd be waking your friend up. Was it really that urgent for something that's happening in 3 days, Mildred? So I just want to say, just be mindful. Ask yourselves these questions when you're just going to shout at your friend through a window to deliver some information. That's all.
That's all. My golden takeaway from this episode is, now that Clayton is a new homosexual, I believe firmly that he needs to upgrade his attire, because he is dressing like a male librarian who is lonely. And he's very dapper, but Clayton needs to embrace the 45, really 53-year-old daddy vibe. Like, he needs to have suits. He needs to read money, because you know this man has money. He needs to read money. He needs to be able to walk into a space and say, yes, I'm going to take you on a trip, and it's going to be hot. You just got to, be hot.
I think that's a great golden takeaway.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, this has been another episode of Out on the Lanai. Please check out the GGVIP Club at patreon.com/Golden Girls Podcast.
And you know what? We're a part of Mom, Moguls of Media, so go support there and go support Mom Plus and all the things mommy. And you can also follow us on social media at Golden Girls Pod on Twitter. Out on the Lanai Official on the Instagramsies. Golden Girls Pod on the Facebook, Face Kindles. It's like a book. And I am HAlanScott / Sadie Pines on everything.
And I am Squid Eat Squid on Twitter and Squidsy on Instagram. And that's all for now. So
remember,
as always,
stay golden.
Stay golden.
Oh my God.
Happy Pride.
Out on the Lanai is not endorsed by Whit Thomas Harris Productions, Touchstone Television, Disney, or any of its subsidiaries. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only.
All names, pictures, audio, and video clips of the Golden Girls are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective trademark and/or copyright holders.